The palace walls no longer towered over her as they once had, but Carth still felt the pressure from them, something that was more spiritual than actually physical, yet left her wanting to escape nonetheless. The creeping ivy along the side felt like her spirit clamoring to get free of the palace, with the incessant training and the brutality she faced each day. "If you keep staring at that wall, you're bound to find some fault in it, don't you think?" Carth glanced to Samus, who lounged near the wall, his sword resting across his legs, a sheen of sweat coating his brow. How long had he been sitting there watching her? Probably too long, she decided. Long enough to know how she longed to leave the practice yard, and how she longed to climb like the ivy and see the inside of the city. It had been 5 years since she'd been allowed out. 5 years she had remained within these walls, not imprisoned so much as protected. "What's to find fault with?" she asked. She made a conscious effort to tear her hand away from the hilt of her sword and turned to face him. Though the top of her head might only come to his shoulders, she wasn't about to let him see her intimidated, mostly because she wasn't, not really, but also because she had to struggle for every bit of respect she'd gained while training, and she wasn't about to let Samus Gold take any of it from her. "The ivy is beautiful as it grows along the sides of the walls." Samus stood and wiped the edge of his blade with his shirt. What was the fool doing with his shirt off anyway? If he thought that impressed her, then he was mistaken. Well, mostly mistaken. "Who cares if the ivy is beautiful? Look at the stone. That's where the strength is. The ivy doesn't keep you from getting past the wall, does it? That's the stone." "I would suggest that you are both wrong." Carth jerked her head around to see Invar Tolnason standing behind them. How had he managed to sneak up on her so easily? All this time, she'd been thinking she was getting more skilled, but with one simple act, he made it clear just how little she had learned. She would use the shadows to determine where he was, but the shadow magic had been forbidden from her here. Not because the Aras thought she shouldn't use it, but because these walls somehow blocked her from doing so. It was for her own good, John had told her before leaving her here. Because of it, she would learn the Aras way, and from there she could develop other abilities and eventually merge them with her ability with the shadows. But Carth couldn't help but feel that she was missing something, because she hadn't used it for so long. She refused to let herself think about whether she could still even reach the shadows when she crossed to the other side of the wall. "How is that wrong, Master?" Samus asked. He flipped his shirt over his shoulder as he sheathed his sword. She would have rather seen him cover himself than the sword. At least the sword she could deal with. "Your assumption is wrong. You believe that it must be either the stone or the ivy." "You think it's both?" Samus asked. Invar arched a brow at Samus's casual tone. If Samus was going to attempt such a relaxed attitude with any of the masters, it should not be Invar. Carth wasn't even surprised to see him. Invar had been appearing around her more and more often, which she thought was strange, but there was nothing she dared say about it, not to one of the masters. "I think that there could not be strength without the other. The ivy needs the stone for support, and the stone needs the ivy for its beauty." "Yes," Invar said, tipping his head to Samus. "Beauty. There is strength in beauty." Samus touched the leaves of the ivy and plucked one from the vine. He brought it to his nose and sniffed it before tossing it back to the ground. "Yet it is neither the ivy nor the stone which grants the strength that you discuss." "What then?" Samus asked. "You study with the Aras, yet you must question what gives strength to the wall." Invar stared at them intently for a moment. Power radiated from him, as if the man exuded it. With Invar, that was possible.